In the book, Building a Story Brand, Mr. Miller talks about how a customer doesn't really care so much about the brand story, the business's story, but their own story, and how will you affect their story. If I were to summarize the entire book in one sentence, it's about making your customer the hero of a story. Regardless of how amazing or great the product is, if you don't market the product to the right people, then you will not sell a single thing. In section 1, why most marketing is a money pit, you have to understand that if you're spending tons of money to mass market your product or service, you're spending a lot of money, but you're only hitting a very few amount of people. But if you pick your target markets, if you want a good example, here on campus, we have an app. Well, through that app, we can see what you've ordered. If you've ordered a lot of gluten-free items or with gluten-free bread, we can see clearly you're probably gluten-free or you choose to eat gluten-free items. We can then send an advertisement for a new gluten-free pizza to only the people who get those gluten-free items. That way, we are targeting a very specific group and not having to waste money on advertising to people who would have no interest in a gluten-free item. Understanding the key problems of each niche and what their wants are is also important. The key thoughts for this are you need to have 6 things. You need to have a clear message, and don't use just big, large, fancy words. People may not be able to understand that. Brands make 2 distinct mistakes when they talk about their products and services. Those 2 mistakes are, the first mistake is about how the consumer may not truly understand all the different facets of what you're offering. The second mistake is them spending too much time and effort trying to understand what you're offering them. If I don't understand, when I watch a commercial, if I don't understand what you're trying to offer me, I'm not going to spend my effort to find out what you're trying to offer me. You need to have, the third lesson is you need to have clarity in the message and cut through a lot of the outside noise, a lot of distractions. If you're trying to advertise something at a sporting event, how do you plan on your advertisement, your message being sent across crowds, a lot of lights, different things like that? Lesson 4 is tell people how your product will change their lives. Why should I buy this? How will this better my life? How will this make my life easier? Lesson 5 is give away the why and sell the how. Less on why should I buy this product, more on how will it affect my life. There is a distinct difference between the two. A good story can transform your business is the last lesson. I have seen many stories told. You can look at, especially very military stories, 12 Hours. That's a very good example of that, where how the story is told can portray the situation very differently. You can even see that in the news. In the news, the 2 different news anchors can tell the exact same story, but how they tell that story portrays that entire situation differently. The next part is the SB7. That includes the customer is the hero, not your brand. You don't want to put your brand on that pedestal. You want to put the customer. Customers tend to sell solutions to external problems, but customers buy solutions to the internal problems. The third one is customers aren't looking for another hero, they're looking for a guide. Fourth one is customers trust a guide who has a plan. Fifth is customers do not take action unless they are challenged to take action. Every human being is trying to avoid a tragic ending, and last part is never assume people understand how your brand can change their life. The way that those concepts, that storytelling, that story building, differ from traditional marketing issues is traditional marketing tends to have a problem solution type of marketing. You're hungry, I have a pizza, this is the solution to your problem. But it's not. Just because you have food doesn't mean that that's the food that they want. So traditional marketing is very broad, mass, and it's very, oh, I have a solution. Well, that may not be the correct solution to this problem. So that's why most marketing is a money pit. You're just applying one solution to a lot of different problems, thinking that that's going to fix it. Section 2 talks about building your story brand. Now, how you build that brand, again, you have that character, the customer, it's the customer, not the brand. You have the villain. Part of the villain should be relatable. If it's not relatable, the villain or the problem, like most everybody has had to sit in traffic, so that would be a relatable villain or problem. But a not relatable villain or problem would be, oh, I had to wait an extra 30 minutes for my chopper to arrive. Most people may have never been in a helicopter in their entire life. They've never had to wait like that. So that to them would not be a villain or problem. And then you have the guide, you have the plan. Part of the plan is they have to trust. If they do not trust in your plan, then you have nothing. The call to action, they will not take action unless called upon. And there's direct and transitional actions. Direct is that buy now. Transitional is they may not buy it right now, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to buy it later. Then you have avoiding the problem, how to avoid problems. Then success. Tell people how you will change their life. A good example is a particular Porsche commercial. It's a bit older, but it's about a kid who sits there looking out the window, and this Porsche 411 comes by. I believe it was. And the kid's just staring at that Porsche. Well, the character is that kid, and a lot of customers can put themselves in the place of the kid. The problem is he's a kid. He doesn't have enough money, and he can't drive. The guide is when the kid goes to the dealership. He goes to the dealership and he meets a car salesman, and the car salesman, instead of shooing the kid away, actually invites the kid. When the kid asks, oh, do you have the Porsche 411? He says, oh, we do. Would you like to sit in it? He allows the kid to sit in it, actually look at the card, and the kid ends up getting out and asking the man for his card, and he hands it to him. He doesn't treat the kid, like, oh, nothing. The next part was the kid said, I'll be back in about 20 years. That's the plan. The kid's going to be back in 20 years to buy this car. The commercial ends with the narrator saying, most Porsche enthusiasts remember the moment they first see a Porsche. Then they remember the first time they bought a Porsche. And then some remember the decade or two it took to get there. So that was the call to action, that it may not be today, but it could be tomorrow when you get that Porsche. And the success is they don't exactly directly tell you the kid got a Porsche, but you can assume and apply that the kid did get a Porsche. So section 3, implementing a storyboard. You need to have a good website. That is an essential part of being able to implement the story. You need to be able to implement, execute, and have tangible, practical steps. Your marketing and your messaging material on your website is going to be vital and critical to this. You need to have an offer above the fold, obvious calls to action, images of success, a bite-sized breakdown of your revenue streams, and very few words. Most people, time is money. That is true. So most people aren't going to spend a lot of time reading a bunch of words, trying to decipher, your images. They need concise, direct information. And in the last section, section 4, critical analysis of the story brand concept. Once again, compared to the traditional approach of here's a problem, here's a solution. Now, whether that solution fits the problem may not always line up, versus being able to tell a story that people can definitely envision themselves in. A good example of a company that I believe has demonstrated a good storyboard is Black Rifle Coffee Company. They have many videos on YouTube, not talking about so much as the brand, but their employees who work there and how much their company is shaped by the employees and their stories. They do tell their backstories, time they served in the military, their experience, all the different things that they've done, and then them coming to Black Rifle and things that they've done in the company, things that they've learned. And a lot of veterans can understand that, especially a lot of veterans who may have gotten out of the military and don't quite know where to go, because they're not also just trying to sell coffee. Although they are a coffee company and they do want to sell coffee, that's not the only thing they're doing. They're also trying to get more veterans to work in their company. And so by having veterans tell their stories, a lot of veterans can see that and empathize and understand, hey, I've been there. I've had that same problem, you know, and I've dealt with the same things. So it definitely can, not even just marketing their product, but their employees actually works really well. So that is my summary of how to build a story brand.